Hi guys, Long White Mane here again. This is the channel where if you can grow your hair down to your butt, you'll never have a bad hair day. Also, I can do Cousin It, but Anyway, I kind of wanted to talk. This is like the 8th time I've tried to make this video. I want to kind of share my journey uh, in my mental illness with y'all. Not because I want you to feel sorry for me, but because I want you to know that I'm one of you and I totally get it. Um, I personally believe that I was mentally ill as far as bipolar disorder at a very young age. I remember being in depressions since I was like 6 or 7. Okay. Um, and most of that was brought on by two parents I had that I personally believe never should have had children in the first place. Uh, my parents were brilliant people. They were not, I think they're pretty high on the IQ chart. Um, they could both do extended polynomials, algebraic polynomials in their heads. Just look at it and do it. Okay. I don't think of myself as a stupid person at all. Unfortunately, they did not have the emotional tools to cope with a person who was more emotionally intelligent than mechanical mathematical. Okay. My brother did wonderful at math. He has no problem. He is a great mechanic. He has no problem with math or anything else. It was me. A little about my parents. My father was an alcoholic and he was good at it. Okay. I come from a long line of boozers, champion boozers on his side. His side also has very strong women that I take after. Um, and I guess you have to be strong if you're going to live with an alcoholic, right? So my dad, when he would get booze, and I'm not talking beer, I'm talking vodka, whiskeys, something like that, he'd get mean. And like a lot of us have experienced, adult children of addicts or alcoholics, or current children, the parent comes home and they just start you know, dumping all this stuff on their partner, and you're hearing this as a child. You're hearing these filthy words being aimed at your mom, and you can't believe daddy or mommy is acting like that. Well, that was my dad. Okay. Um, he was part of the golf team at his job, and I think he joined just so he could go to the beer garden after they played. So anyway, so dad was an alkie. Um, my mom was an addict. She was addicted to a drug called Ativan, which is an old drug. I think it was invented shortly after Valium, but I could be mistaken on that. But I do know it's extremely old. And the reason I know she was addicted to it is you'll find out later. But when she died, and my dad was getting rid of her things, he found a bunch of bottles of that stuff stashed in every little corner. So yeah, she was an addict. My mom was also a hoarder. Okay, I grew up with clutter, and I don't mean the horrible trash-ridden hoarder thing at all. Okay, that was not my mom. The kitchen was always clean. Okay, what I'm talking about is she would go to garage sales and she'd pick up things like carnival glass, Fenton glass, um, Yadro sculptures if she could find them. Anything that had a high dollar mark on it, she would buy it and keep it in boxes. But we had little pathways everywhere, and so that was my mom. Kind of a weird story. My mom began to knit uh, for a while during the 80s, and she would knit sweaters for me, Afghans for my brother. She just went crazy. And the other thing she would like to do is she would go to Kmart or Yarn Barn when they had big sales and just buy, excuse me, all this yarn. And she'd found these big plastic storage bags somewhere. They were kind of clear, and she would make them into the shape of a rectangle, kind of like a hay bale, you know? And then what she did was she stashed them all in my brother's closet. So my poor brother, growing up, he had maybe 3 feet of closet in an 8-foot closet. You know, the 5 foot was just yarn, you know, of all colors and all strain. It was just ridiculous, the amount of yarn. You know, there were bottles and jars of buttons. I mean, it was insane. It was just all the stuff she had was just insane. I do have a couple of pieces, only 2 or 3 that she had, one of which was a gift I gave to her. So when she passed on, I took that gift back. So I do have that. Um, my parent growing up, my brother and I did not have a lot of emotional support. You know, you've got two parents that are in pain in some way. I never did find out why they were addicts and alcoholic. Um, but they were in pain and self-medicating. I know that now because I'm more educated in the ways of the addict. Okay? Pain is a horrible thing, and it makes you do horrible things, especially if it's an emotional pain rather than physical. Um, my dad was, like I said, he was an aerospace engineer. He had a security clearance, and he knew stuff about the government, you know. And he was he was a brilliant man, like I said, brilliant at mathematician, and he could. I mean, the two of the things he did tell me about is in the 50s or 60s, he was the no, he was on the team of at Xerox when they developed their version of the fax machine in the 50s and 60s. So also he was on the team that developed the microwave transmitter for the Voyager satellite. And I forget exactly when that was launched. I think it was in the 80s or 90s, but it was the one, you can look it up on Google. It was the one that had this gold record attached to it, and on that record there's like sounds of earth, there's people singing, there's just stuff on there. Well, he was part of the team that developed the microwave transmitter. Okay, so he's not a dumb man by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I was 5 when my brother was born, and that would make it what, 1970. And I was a very immature 5-year-old. My mother had never had done everything for me. You know, I never had to clean my room, that kind of thing. I was never given any responsibility, and I should have been. Anyway, brother's born, he comes home, and I'm standing there watching all the relatives pay attention to Michael. You know, that's my brother's name. And I'm jealous because I don't think I'm loved anymore. I'm just old news, you know. And nobody sits down and says, you know what? You're still part of this family. We still love you just as much, but you got to understand, Michael's a baby and he needs care more than I can, you know. You don't need as much care as he does. He needs diaper changing and feeding and all this stuff. Had they explained it to me, I would have been able to cope better, I think, and grown up a little bit. Hey, I got to protect my little brother, right? Wrong. So as Michael grew up, you know, we got along until he could start talking and walking, and then things became a problem because I was still very, very jealous. And I'm ashamed to say and confess that I bullied that poor kid for years, you know. Stay away from me, you know, verbal abuse. But you have to understand that one, the reason I bullied him was, one, I was jealous, but two, I was getting no emotional support from my parents, and neither was he. Okay, so you know, for example, in the first grade, I remember I did something wrong in the morning. I don't know if I was not getting ready fast enough, running late, whatever, but my mom threatened to spank me when I got home. And we didn't just get a paddling, okay? My mother would go to the bush, grab a branch like a switch, like a thin whip, and just whip us with it. I mean, and it hurt. You know, do it to yourself. Tell me it doesn't hurt. So anyway, I go to school and I'm full of anxiety because you know what? I'm going to get a paddling when I get home. Oh my God. And you want to go anywhere but home, right? You want to go anywhere but home because you're going to get abused when you get there. So I walk home, go in the house. She's asleep. She's forgotten all about it. Really? Thanks. You know, thanks for the anxiety, Ma. Appreciate it. She taught me anxiety. Okay. And then, things kind of got worse after that, you know, and Dad was deep in his cups, as the British say. He would drink 2 6 packs a night and still go to work in the morning. I don't know how he did it, but he did. My dad was afraid of emotion, I think, because I was a crier as a kid. If I saw something that made me sad, I'd cry. I, you know, when things were frustrating, I'd cry. I cried for a lot of reasons. And in my father's eyes, even women weren't allowed to cry. No one cried. Don't show emotion. You know. So as we grew up, things started getting worse. You know, I remember in second grade, my little friend up the street joined the Brownies, and I told my mom, I want to join the Brownies too. She goes, okay. So she gets, for Christmas, I get the Brownie uniform. It was so cool. I wore the Brownie uniform on Brownie Day to school, and I was so excited. I'm going to join someplace that's really, really fun. But I was too young to know that the members of the Brownie troop all went to the same elementary school, and I was the outsider. And not only was I the outsider, I was a depressed kid, and they didn't understand that. They're kids, they don't know. So as a result, I kept getting left out of things in the games because I didn't always understand the games, and those kids played them on the schoolyard. But I went to a different school. We played different games, and I'd ask and try to join in, but it just didn't fit. And it's not any of their fault. It's just what happened. And the troop mothers, I don't know where, I feel I'm kind of mad at them because I think they should have tried to make an effort to to help assimilate me into the troop, but whatever, it is what it is. But the cool thing was when they did crafts, I was able to do that, and I did it okay. And I remember one craft in particular. It was like this little 12 by 12 little square. It was basically a sheet of plastic, and then you had a little piece of cheap foam, and then another piece of plastic, and you sewed that up together. Ooh, excuse me. You sewed that up together with a thick piece of plastic that kind of you loop stitched it. Oh, I was so proud of that. I sewed something together. That was my feeling. So my friend's mom drives us home. She drops me off, and it's about 6 o'clock in the evening. It's getting dark. I walk in the house, and the whole house is dark. There's no supper on the stove. There's not a light on. All I can hear is the television and my mom sawing logs on the couch. You know, and I got into such a depression. It just killed me. Just killed me. And I just remember walking over to the coffee table and setting down that little pad I was so proud of and just walked into my room. Waited till my dad came home. you know, I know that so many of other people have gone through this, and I just want you to know you're not alone. I'm not alone. Um, and I remember in third, fourth, and fifth, I was really struggling in maths. Okay. I've told you, my intelligence lies in emotional intelligence. I can do mechanics to a point, but math, I get lost in math. Um, I'm not stupid. I've taught myself algebra, and I know I've done it because I did all the answers are correct, but it's not how I think. So I was doing so badly at math. My mother, we weren't allowed to play except for weekends, okay? We were supposed to go straight home, undo our bags, do our homework, and if she didn't like the way we did it the first time, we had to copy it over again, you know? Very controlling, very, very tyrannical the way I was raised. You did what mom said, and you didn't say no. If you needed to ask questions, you said how, or but you did what you were told, because you get the switch. You didn't want to get whipped. So anyway, I'm sitting there. I just remember sitting there with my math, and I'm trying to learn division, and it's long division. And I'm getting confused because my mother is putting so much pressure on me. So what does she do? She's calling me all these names, dumb and dumbass and numbskull and all this. She finally comes to a climax of her frustration. She grabs me by the freaking arm and digs her nails in till my arm bled, and said, "Why the fuck are you so stupid? I get this. How come you can't get this? Michael gets it, you know." And all I could do was cry. All I could do, you know. I was sent to my room and brought out 10 minutes later to face that again, you know. So to this day, I have a math phobia. Okay. If I'm by myself, like I'm talking to you here in my place, it's okay. I can do the math. But if even if roommate walks up behind me and looking at what I'm doing, I get nervous. My brain goes blank. I can't think. I can't function until that person goes away. And then I have to do breathing. I have to calm down and then get back into it. And I know many of us have math phobias for many different reasons, but that's how I came to mine. Um, I was also, I remember at 5 years old, this is also part of my PTSD. When I was 5 years old, I was playing in the garage, and there was an old desk in there of my grandfather's. And I was playing with the typewriter, as you do. It was an ancient royal typewriter. Oh, God, it was so old. And I was going through the drawers, and I found this porno of these people. I didn't understand at 5 years old what it was, but I looked at it, and people were putting objects in vaginas and slapping people, and really, it was really harsh. I mean, it was hardcore. I mean, women were really being abused. It scared the hell out of me. And to this day, I remember pictures, I mean, as clear as a bell if I'd seen him yesterday, you know, and it made me scared of men because men do that to women. Women want to, you know, that was my thought. Men do that to women. So if this must be grandpa's, so dad's the same way. Dad's mean to mom too, you know. So I grew up kind of scared of things, you know. It you don't expose a child to pornography. I mean, this shit should have been thrown away before. Maybe they didn't even know it was in there. I don't know, but it was pretty rank. And to this day, I have problems with men, you know. And but as I grew up, I noticed I had a kind of a core of strength, and it got stronger as I grew older. And my father, his sisters are very strong women. The men are alcoholics, and the women do what needs to get done. Now, my mother's family, it's quite the opposite. My mother's family, um, they're very feminine women, and they're like, you know, makeup wearing and keeping everything light, and, you know, they know how to decorate and crap like that. Um, but I grew up like my dad's sisters, and my dad didn't like me. He told me that to my face. You know, I was 18, graduated high school, and I wanted to join the military because that would really have squared me away, I think. But I also think the bipolar would have gotten in there and I wouldn't have made it. So it's probably just as well I didn't go in. But I remember talking to my father about it. And like I said, he's a Korean War veteran. So he's looking at me and talking me out of it. But I remember exactly one thing he said. He pointed his finger at me. He says, "I don't like you." And I just sat there. I should have asked him why, but I just sat there and stared at him. You know, it's like, really? You know, see, you need to understand something. Your dad is the first man that you will ever meet, or your daughter will ever meet, right? They become the standard of men for them. So it's so important to have your partner, the male partner, encourage the little girls. Girls need to be known that they're beautiful, that they're worth it. I love you. You're wonderful. If girls have that kind of encouragement from their fathers, they will go a very long way, very long way. And it's so important because Their life partner, they will choose a life partner similar to that father if they're heterosexual. See? So please understand that it's so important to be a good dad to your daughter. Let her know you love her no matter what she does. Okay, so you've kind of seen the physical abuse. It's not nothing compared to, say, my roommate, and it's nothing compared to a lot of other people it's focused on there, but it hurt me, and I'm just sharing it. You know, many people have had it a lot worse, okay? And I know that, and I'm not trying to minimize that or take it away. I'm just saying this is my experience, okay? Shrug shoulders. Um, okay, so as things went on, my mother got worse and worse, and I remember I was one weekend we were out, my brother and I were out playing with our friends, and you know how some of us back in the day who could play on the street, not worry about, people taking you away or snatching you. You played until dusk, until the street lights came on, and then you went home. That was just the rule. And since my brother and I were only allowed out on the weekend, we went nuts. I mean, we just really went nuts. So anyway, I remember my brother and I came home one night or one evening, and we went to the door. Door was locked. Door handle locked. Went to the front door. That was locked. Went to the backyard door. That was locked. Well, the backyard door had a window in it, big square window. It took up half the door, and then there was the wood door. It wasn't a Dutch door. It just had this window. And I remember my mom opening the curtain and looking at her eyes. They were insane wild. I'm telling you right now. If you've ever seen in the movies an actor being, batshit crazy, that was the expression my mom had on her face. And I knew something was wrong. And I looked at my brother, and he was standing there like this, just terrified. She opens the door, and she looks at both of us and says, "You're not ever living here ever again because you didn't close the door when you went out to play." Now, I'm 52, and I take that memory and I go, "Really? We didn't close the door, so you're just going to be a bitch, like this? Treat us like this?" My brother was in hysterics, okay? Hysterics. He thought he was never going to live in the house again. He thought mom didn't love him. All these horrible things. So what do? I take a rare moment and I cuddle my brother. I pick him up. I go into the garage because it's getting chilly and we have no coats on. And so the garage is the only place we can go. And there's this little antique chair. I'll never forget. And I sat down on it and I held my brother on my lap and I was comforting him. And he finally started crying, stopped crying, and, kind of went into, cried himself to sleep, if you will. So about 45 minutes to an hour later, my mother comes out, still that same insane light in her eyes. And she goes, "Okay, come in the house." So I put my brother down and I put myself between my mom and my brother. And we marched, single file into the house. She closes the door behind us and she goes, "Now, each of you go to your rooms, close the door, and I don't want to hear you or see you." And so we went. House is dark, TV's on, mom's nuts. It's terrifying for a child because you don't know what's going to happen. And I start getting really, really depressed. I can feel that horrible depression weight just sinking into my chest, into my very soul. So I sit on my bed and I just start crying. I don't know what my brother was doing, but I was upset. My dad comes home and I hear him coming up the hallway and he opens my door and he goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Mama just said to go in our rooms and not make any noise." And he looked at me kind of funny, like, "What, really? What's going on?" Because normally we could run around the house. I mean, this was really, really out of character for mom, right? So I don't know what happened he closed the door and left. But I don't know what happened between him and mom, but things kind of got normal after that, if you can call a dysfunctional family normal, but normal for us, you know. Um, so yeah, that's always a load of fun. A lot of people have been through that kind of abuse, that mental abuse. Both of my parents were great mind fuckers emotionally. I can, because of them, I can spot a mind fucker a mile off, and I leave them, leave them where they are, because I don't want to deal with them. I've had enough. Eight, what is it? 19 years was enough. So, sixth grade's here, and the first day of sixth grade, I fell in love with my teacher. Not a crush. I mean, it was because I was so depressed inside. I had done something the summer before sixth grade, and I don't remember what it was, but it upset my mom so badly, she wouldn't talk to me. And she was one of those people that you could be looking her right in the eye, and she's seeing right through you. She's not seeing you at all, you know. And that went on for weeks in the summer. Weeks. I would sit there. She'd be sitting on the couch watching a soap opera, right? And I'd go over to beg her to talk to me. Beg her, Mom, please, I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm so sorry. And she would just, she's smoking her cigarette. She'd put her cigarette out, shut the TV off, and go in the bedroom and watch TV rather than acknowledge me, right? I don't know if she ever did this to my brother. I do not think she did, but she did it to me. So, first day of school rolls around, and I'm trying to get dressed and avoid my mom as much as possible, because right now I think she hates me, right? So I go to school, and my teacher was wonderful. She was just so kind and so sweet. It was like a balm on the depression. It cheered me up so much. And then to come home and try to talk to your mother, and your mother is looking at you as you're not there, and then starts talking to your brother, right? Talks to your brother, not you. You're just a non-existent person. Even homework. I would sit at the table, they would move to another table, where I wasn't. It was very diabolical the way they did this. So this went on for weeks, and finally my mother relented, started talking to me. So junior high was okay, as dysfunctional families go. I can't remember a whole lot of that, other than I was bullied by another girl, but everybody gets bullied at one point or another. It's just this one got so bad we had to hire an attorney. And I'll go in, if you're curious about that, I'll let you know, but basically that's what happened. Um, so, now understand that my brother and I are not taught any kind of emotional support. We don't have that. So we're going at each other because we're jealous of each other, and our parents are turning to booze and medication to medicate themselves. Okay, they've got problems. So it's this family is horrible, right? So I get into high school. Now, of course, high school, you start dating, you got all the hormones going on, and I think girls especially should be taught how to say no, you know, because so many of us, when we're young, we don't want to disappoint anybody, especially if we have dysfunctional parents, because if you disappoint them and let them down, that makes you a crumb bum. You're a horrible person for letting them down. So what I, what I met a kid, met a guy, fell in love, and I lost my virginity to him, right? I was 16 years old. Well, my mom told my father, oh my God, my father already had a problem with me because I'm strong like his sisters. And he didn't like that. He wants women, mild and meek and obedient and all this stuff. And he didn't like me. And he told me so. Well, he finds out I've lost my virginity, and all of a sudden, now I'm persona non grata. Okay? Again. Again. See? And he does the same thing my mother does. Looks right through me. Right? I'm not allowed to eat at the same place they are. My father told my mother that. Everything my father wanted was filtered through my mother, and she was glad to do it. Yeah. I mean, I was all of a sudden the slut from hell, and I was going to be treated accordingly. Come Christmas time, this is great. You'll love this. My brother, my father, and my mother are all decorating the house for Christmas. I was not welcome. I was not welcome. And I remember sitting in the family room, and they were in the living room, and I could hear them laughing and talking. And I'm sitting there, and I know I'm not welcome. So I just, I had a car at the time. I just grabbed the keys and went for a drive, you know. And they did that to me for 2 Christmases. They did. Um, so if somebody tells me family is everything, I have no idea what that means. I've never had a family member loyal to me, and I've tried to be loyal to them, and I've made mistakes and I've admitted them. But the way I've been treated, I don't know what family means. Okay? So I graduate high school and I start working at an attorney's office where I have no business being, really, because being a secretary, a legal secretary, you've got to know court procedure. You have to know the paperwork that needs to be involved, you know, clients. And I mean, there's so much stuff. It was like a year learning curve. I mean, it just, it was, I was insane. And I was so depressed because I couldn't, I just keep making these mistakes, and it was all this pressure. So I left that attorney and worked for another, which was a little better because it was just him and me, and so I learned that I could not do high pressure jobs. I knew that. So that's before I knew I was diagnosed with bipolar. Long story short, I go through my career through several attorneys, then I decide to go into real estate, and I start working for a huge commercial real estate company, and they're global and they manage amazing amount of properties in Los Angeles and around the world. And so I get a job there as support staff, as they called it, which is basically a secretary. And it was hard because it was mostly women, and because I am a strong woman, and if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the answer. It's not, I don't ever do that. Well, honey, what's wrong? I don't say, well, nothing. I say, you know what, blah, and I tell you as nice in as nice terms as I can, but I do tell you what's wrong. And like, for example, this woman that was working there, she the day but one day she was complaining to me about the quality of her Chevrolet Suburban. She hated it. It was horrible, blah blah blah. So she comes back to me a week later and she tells me, well, I bought a GMC, same, GMC thing, and it's just wonderful, blah blah blah. I said, you know that GM makes Chevy, right? And she got mad at me. Apparently the right thing to say was, "Oh, wonderful." I can't do that. It was just slipped out of my mouth. GM makes Chevy. It pissed her off to no end. She didn't talk to me ever again. But she's the one that made the mistake. I pointed it out, and she got mad at me. I mean, women, I don't get them, and I am one. I don't understand any of you. So, I go from job to job because my illness affects my work, and it makes it hard to do anything, and I don't know what's going on. So while I'm at the real estate company, I meet this wonderful woman named Adrienne. And Adrienne is a spitfire. I mean, she just has got confidence up to the roof. She knows what she's doing. She's got a black belt in Taekwondo. She's just wild. So she indicates to me that I'm kind of depressed. And she says, you need to see a doctor for it. So I took her advice, and I did, and he diagnosed me as depressed rather than bipolar. And we started taking medication. I started taking medication. And we switched and, worked out which was the best. It was 4 or 5 I tried, I guess. Um, so long story short, I'm married now, and husband, doesn't respect me. So every time I ask him about something or tell him something, he'll ask me, did you take your medication today? Because, you're kind of angry. And I'm like, I have a right to be angry. This is a valid emotion. I mean, that's just how he treated me. Like nothing was ever valid. And it was always fix long white mane, fix my wife. Don't, I'm never wrong, right? So, he cons, my father dies. There's a trust. There's problems with that because of my brother. I get an attorney, and the attorney works it out. So I got my share of the trust as instructed by the trust itself that my father set up. So, yeah, I'll never be able to speak to my brother again because I hired an attorney that kicked his ass and made him do what he needed to do. So, long story short, my husband has us move to Riverside, California, where you can have desert. We had an acre of desert, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. It was wonderful. I had horses. It was great. And then he decides he wants to move us to Texas. Now you gotta understand something. I'm still naive, right? I am still thinking marriage is forever, blah, 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 all that crap that's just not true. And, didn't want to admit my husband cheated on me. I'm just so naive and stuff. So we moved to Texas, and a year later, he meets this woman with five kids, 5 different dads, and one on the way. Now, I don't give a shit if that was his kid, but I'm telling you right now, he is welcome to welfare mama. Have fun, enjoy yourself. He told me later that the fathers of those kids accused him of uh, molesting them, so he had to go through a bunch of shit. That's what you get when that's what you get, because he put me through hell. I was going through foreclosure on the house. My car was getting repossessed. I had to give my horses away, give them away, but they went to a wonderful place. I went to see them, and the owner is taking great care of them. I'm happy. And I had to put 6 dogs to sleep all at once. They were bull terriers that were left from my kennel when I bred and showed bull terriers in California. I never had a champion dog. I just enjoyed the hobby. Okay. I couldn't afford a professional handler. So, it was me. And so that was my hobby at the time. And I had no support system, nothing, except for MHMR in Johnson County. Those ladies got me my medication. My final diagnosis of bipolar 2, they were the one that came up with that, and it fit, and it's been great ever since. So I lost everything. So I get a job selling mobile homes, and the people that know me know I can't sell my way out of a paper bag. I'm just horrible at it. If someone, a person came in to buy a home and we ran their credit and it was bad credit, you can't sell them a home. It's just, you know. So as I worked there, I got to know the transportation manager at the factory, and we became really good friends. And when he found out what I was going through, he says, "Look, I've got a room you can rent. Come on out. Come on over." And he helped me get on my feet. Well, transportation manager is now a roommate, and I'm taking care of him. So he's in bad health, and I keep track of his medications, and I keep track of stuff he's going through. Oh, excuse me. This is like the 8th time I've made this video. There's so much to say in it. I just wanted you to know that I understand abuse and I understand PTSD. I get it. I really do. And I know for a fact that there are billions of people that have had it worse than I do. I mean, I've had it easy compared to so many other people. So don't think that I'm saying this so you'll make you feel sorry for me. I really want you to just take from this that you're not alone. Okay? There's a bunch of us, I mean, more people than you think, that understand the abuse and trying to get, as an adult child, trying to come to grips and put this crap in the right place where it belongs. Join a support group. If you're having trouble finding one, let me know in the comments. I'll help you wherever you live. Google is a wonderful tool. So just do what you can to help yourself. Keep yourself happy and healthy, because if you don't, you can't be of any use to anybody else. Okay? You guys take care, and we'll see you in the next vid.